Hi, Sarah from California here, listening to D-Cal, that funny, witty, handsome man with his E.I.T.H.R podcast.
So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D-Cal.
Rest my eyes. Rest my eyes.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy D-Cal here, host of the E.I.T.H.R podcast from Northern California. It is Friday. Today is, the 6th of October? I mean, it's crazy, and we're still in the 90s up here in NorCal. Anywho, want to say, what's up, and thank you very much for following on the social medias, Instagram and the Twitter account. The handles are the E.I.T.H.R, T-H-E, E-I-T-H.R. You can also subscribe to the YouTube page where you can get the previous 46 and soon to be 47 episodes of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Just go to YouTube and search the GNS Inc. T-H-E, GNS, INC, and you'll go ahead and see the library stuff that we have uploaded right there. It's been an interesting week, man. How's your week? What you guys can do, too, is you can download the Spreaker app, S-P-R-E-A-K-E-R. Create a profile, and you'll be able to chit-chat and socialize and keep in contact along with me during the podcast and after any of the episodes as well. So if you want to keep in touch. So that's that, man. First thing I want to do is give a shout out to Mod Clothing. If you guys can go ahead and check out some clothing wear that makes you feel, a little bit more confident about yourself, kind of wear your smile on your sleeve and kind of show the world that all the demons that you're struggling, that no one knows that you're battling, but you're conquering anyway. And you can go ahead and make it look easy. Just go to mile.today, MILE.TODAY, and go ahead and get your Mile gear. Stack up because fall is coming. Lord knows you guys are going to need some hoodies, and there's people right now in New York and Ohio who literally swear by how warm these hoodies are keeping them warm, and I sincerely appreciate that. Long sleeve t-shirts are my favorite though. Those are my favorites. So we've been kind of doing some things off the grid from the podcast, doing with some with Twitter. Twitter has a thing called Spaces, and what I've been doing is, since I tailgate my laptop and kind of get everything situated that way, I've been doing some quote-unquote interviews, for lack of a better term, with people on the Spaces account. So if you don't have Twitter, I suggest you get it because it's a great way to keep in contact with your celebrities such as myself. But also anytime we see me doing the Spaces, you can join in as a listener, or you can even request to participate. So it's kind of like my my phone line until I get my phone line, if that makes any sense. So a few things we're going to talk about before we get into that. Actually, I kind of want to stay on schedule. I want to go ahead and discuss shouting out to people. I want to give a shout out to the Denver Broncos because they suck. We're going to kind of talk about that a little bit later. I want to give a shout out to the whoever leaked the Golden State Warriors practice the other day. That's kind of taking its toll right now in the social media world. That's been a good little debate. We're going to talk about that later on here in the podcast. But I want to give a shout out to my homegirl Rita, aka well, I can't say that anymore because I got told not to say that. But my homegirl Rita, she has this awesome little program she's doing for therapy. When I get in contact with her, I'll make sure to drop a little bit more information about that. But it's more for your mental wellness and self-esteem and inner self and self-calm and becoming one and zen and chi and kumbaya and all that fun stuff. So she got that going on. So I want to go ahead and give a shout out to them. I want to give a big shout out to everybody with mental illness. Mental illness is a real thing. Except for Khloe Kardashian, who says that she's suffering from mental illness due to her boyfriend constantly cheating on her. I don't think that's exactly how it works, miss. Hey, but when you have that kind of money, fame, and status, the rules can be bent, and in some cases they can even be broken. So, have at it. What I want to do is give some motivating and inspiring words to people out there who are listening to the podcast. And that is, you only have 24 hours in a day. Make sure none of that time is spent on bullshit. Just don't do it. Life is too short. You never know when it's going to end. And the last thing you want to do is waste it on somebody who really isn't talking about anything. And unfortunately, in today's world, there's a lot of people who aren't talking about anything. So, give you a little bit of heads up today. What we're going to do is talk about this executive order thing that got signed by Sleepy Joe. We're going to talk about the Draymond Green punch. And we're also going to talk about some other stuff, as you see in the description. So, I think it's going to be a pretty cool, pretty fun conversation. Like I said, if you guys want to chime in, just get on the Spreaker app and get at me that way. And so, when we get back from this quick little break, we're going to get right into my opinion about the pardon that Sleepy Joe is getting into effect right now. So give me about 10 seconds and we'll go ahead and address that, ladies and gentlemen. Be right back.
Hey, this your girl Key, and I'm calling from Compton, and you listening to E.I.T.H.R podcast with D-Cal.
So, Joe Biden has signed this executive order where he wants to pardon anybody, or he's going to pardon everybody who has been incarcerated, basically for marijuana possession that's in federal prison. Personally, I think this is kind of a little long overdue. I think it's long overdue. And I've said this in previous episodes that I think those who are in charge of the U.S. government, a lot of these people, they don't really understand how the world works outside of the world that they know. They just don't grasp it. They don't get it. And so I think, feel, and believe that anyone who was incarcerated back then, the drug was definitely looked at differently than it is now. Right? It was a bad thing to do, marijuana. It was an evil thing to do, marijuana. It was a no thing to do, marijuana. Until the government learn how they can make money off of it. And I kind of said this in previous episodes, right? What do you do when you get down on your luck and you start running out of money and you have no options? You sell drugs. So look what happens with the U.S. government. There's so much debt that they're creating a whole new currency to basically, seemingly erase and eradicate the current currency that they're in debt with. They're going to create a whole new one, just make shit out of thin air, and think that's going to how you fix the problem. And a lot of situations in the government, like I said at the beginning of this, is they don't know how to relate because this is not the world they come from. They're not in this world. They don't know how to deal with the same as you or I. Not before any of us want to pass judgment on Sleepy Joe or anybody else. Before you sit back and say what he should do, ask yourself what your finances look like. Right? Because if you can't even straighten out your own bank account, how the hell are you going to straighten out the bank account of a country? Right? If your house, condo, or apartment is messy, clean with roaches, how are you going to clean up the streets of your city when you can't even keep clean within your own four walls? Let's just think there. I think it's a smart move to have done this, but again, as usual, the government's about 20, 30 years a little too late. Had a little conversation with Clarissa, from Rissa Tees, from some of our endorsements. And Joe was senator back in the day when Clinton was president, when they did the whole, was that the 3 strikes back in the mid-90s, where it basically put a whole push on anybody who was doing marijuana sales or possession to kind of just like a no nonsense, no tolerant type of push in poor communities, which really filled up these prisons with people with marijuana sales. So he kind of started that problem that he's now saying we need to abolish. Again, the times were different. The thought process was different. The world was different. I'm not going to sit back and say people can't change, but I am going to sit back and say even Clinton admitted that he had to do something different in order to separate himself in that political race to become president. And so everyone was about talk, and they had to be about action. And even, Kamala Harris was part of that whole deal where they just did a whole no nonsense on the streets, right? People don't forget. So again, even though you're easing things like this with, in student loan debt, like forgiveness. So even though you're doing things of this nature, now it's about 20, 30 years too late. But hey, they say better late than never. Now, for those who are upset at him doing the whole debt forgiveness thing for college loans, listen, you can't necessarily expect the world to be better if the world stays the same as you know it, right? I myself am guilty with that mindset in certain aspects of it. And it does feel a certain type of way if you had to go through all these loops to pay off a certain debt, and then all of a sudden the government sits back and says that debt is now being abolished for everyone moving forward. You're going to feel a certain type of way because, like, damn, man, like, why not me? Like, why couldn't you have done this for me? I get that. But I kind of like it at the same as parents who get mad at their children because their children, not mad at their children, but, upset with their children because it's like, man, I didn't have this when I was your age. Well, look at all the shit you had that your parents didn't have when they were your age. Like, we're supposed to advance and progress and grow. So I to a degree, I understand it. But as the world evolves, we're supposed to offer the next generation something that the previous generation was cheated out of, never had the option to receive, or it never existed for. That's how you progress. That's how you grow. At least in my opinion. So again, I do understand the frustration for the relief and the frustration for the marijuana possession charges, people being released from jail. I get it. I just wish the government, which would never happen, I just wish they would act in a way of, okay, we have to start getting more in tune with our people and being what's good with the streets, like what's happening now, what's going on current. Because right now, these people who are in charge, a lot of people in the Senate and House, man, they've been in charge. They've been in their positions since the 60s and 70s, right? Since the 70s and 80s. And so in their mind, the world is exactly how it was when they first got in. Because again, they don't see our lifestyle, how we live our lifestyle, because they're so caught up in theirs. And a lot of times, the information that they receive, it's from, their runners. It's from their people. It's from analytics. It's from numbers. They don't go to the same neighborhoods as most of us. They're probably deemed not to for their own protection and security, right? So they're so out of touch, man. Again, great idea. I think it's a little late. I personally think and believe, and I said this on previous episodes before, I feel that in order for us to change, we as a people, we need to come together. We need to unify and create something for our own streets. I can't say take laws into our own hands per se, but I do believe what we need to do is to have our streets as much as possible ran the way neighborhoods collectively feel it needs to be. And I think in a perfect world, growing up in Oakland, we had these, we had big mamas, right? Every family has a big mama. Every neighborhood has that one parent figure or that one grandparent figure that all the little kids kind of would go to. And on my block, there was Mama Lester. And, then there was my mother. But my mom was like the no-nonsense mom. Mama Lester was the woman who, she was known on the block, right? And on Chestnut Street. So, and like I said, each neighborhood had their own version of it. But what you can do is you could find that one person that the neighborhood respects, and that person or those people kind of come together with some of the the youth in the neighborhood, and some of the middle age in the neighborhood, and some of the teenagers in the neighborhood, and kind of just chit chat, have a conversation like, yo, what are you guys up to? What's going on in the streets for you? Okay, well, what do you guys got going on? Okay, well, here's what we're trying to establish. Okay, here's what we want to see. Okay, well, this is what we want to see before we go, before we move on, before we pass on, and kind of create your own roundtable, but a diverse roundtable, of different age groups and different color. Because, listen, if you don't figure it out, they're going to figure it out for you. And I can tell you right now, if they have to figure it out for you, it's never going to work out for you. Because by the time you figure it out, you're being priced out, right? Because that's the difference between gentrification and industrialization. So I think what people need to do is kind of figure out how to industrialize their neighborhood, not necessarily with businesses, but industrialize it to where you have neighborhood activities for the children. Maybe you use a church and you rent the church out for kids to come do homework at your local church or your local library or somebody's local house, to where this is their own study hall. If you can't be at the school or go to the school, okay, here's what you can do after school. You can come here. This is a safe haven, right? You can do that. I don't know how many people really want to do something like that just because of the mindset, but I honestly believe that if a good number of people and the right number of people actually made that effort, the neighborhood definitely would support it. And I honestly feel that the people who are in the streets grinding and hustling and, doing their street thing, if they see how well it is and what the purpose of it is for the youth, they definitely will back it. Matter of fact, they might even put their kids in it because they see it's for the, it's for the betterment. Don't expect anything from them, but if you receive something from them, that's an extra plus. But that's what I think. Like I said, the government does what it thinks it should be doing, but its whole job is to regulate. It's not to fix. And I think what we're doing is we're waiting for too many people to fix it. But kudos to doing the order to get these people out. It just 20, 30 years a little too late. For the forgiveness, awesome. If you don't like it, I don't think you really like anything that someone else gets that you are not able to receive. And that's kind of a selfish thought. But, that's a discussion for another day. Now, I kind of want to get into this bum-ass Russell Wilson. Be right back.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at and or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at mile.today. Mile.today. www.mile.today. A GNS collection. Hey everybody, what's up? This is Sabrina Jade, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D-Cal.
Okay, so I said this buster as quarterback Russell Wilson for the Denver Broncos. Listen, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. Russell Wilson's a really good quarterback. At least he was hyped up to be. Out of Wisconsin, Super Bowl champion. They would have had back-to-back if he was actually any good. And gave the ball to Marshawn Lynch. But, that's another story. So he was traded to the Denver Broncos for basically the firstborn and half your mortgage. And what Seattle gave in return was a quarterback that is asking for damn near $250 million in the contract just for their kicker to save him. Listen, one of the biggest issues with Russell Wilson had in Seattle was he wanted to cook. Let Russ cook. And the coaches in Seattle, basically, their philosophy was we're going to run the ball, and then we're going to pass the ball. You're not going to be a manager of the sport. You're not going to be a manager of the team. You're not going to be a manager of the game. But we're not going to put all the pressure on you. I'm old school to where I come from. The coaches make the decisions more so than the players make the decision. Now, one of the tricks is when you have a really good game or a really good stream of games, sometimes you get overhyped by people. And I'm not going to, quote unquote, blame the media. I'm not going to blame anybody else. I'm just going to say, in general, you get overhyped. And sometimes that overhype gasses up the wrong people, such as GMs and owners, because you see popularity and you think of how much people will buy in to see this attraction. So what that does, it can put unnecessary pressure on the athlete to perform expectations that they didn't ask for. Prime example was Jimmy G in San Francisco when a couple seasons ago he had a 5-game winning streak. And in that following offseason, based on those 5 games that he played, he was given like this astronomical contract. Well, that was kind of the going market for quarterbacks. And now we have this Jimmy Garoppolo mess out in Santa Clara, whether he should be on the team. I'm not going to sit back and say Jimmy G is a bad quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and say Jimmy G is a good quarterback. I'm going to say that Jimmy G is a quarterback for the Niners that got a very lucrative contract because of the timing. And now the question is, should we keep him? Should he stay or should he go? And I'm like, you don't pay someone that much money and have to make that decision if they're worth it. So with Russell Wilson, Thursday Night Football, the Denver Broncos played the Indianapolis Colts in the city of Denver, and they lost 12-9. If I believe it was no touchdowns scored whatsoever. No offensive touchdown scored whatsoever. And so I think it comes down to the point where folks need to pay a little bit more attention in my couch general manager position. You need to pay a little bit more attention to what the coaches are saying about the player versus what the analytics say or what the statistics say, because everybody wants to talk about the 2000 Baltimore Ravens and how great that defense was. It was because they allowed the fewest points. But I believe it was the Tennessee Titans that year that allowed the fewest yards, which statistically, that should count for the number one defense. It's yardage. But when it came to the fewest points, I believe Baltimore did that. So I think Baltimore had the fewest yards and Tennessee had the fewest points. I think it was between goal line and goal line. You can do whatever you want to, but you wasn't getting in the end zone. I'm talking to myself, sorry. I think Baltimore allowed the fewest points in the NFL that year, and Tennessee allowed the fewest yardage. Either way it goes. Trent Dilfer was the quarterback of that team, and Trent Dilfer was considered to be a game manager, which I don't see how that's a bad problem. But because everyone's flashy, splashy quarterbacks, being called a game manager is an insult, right? It's like a slur to a quarterback. It's like telling someone who's made it that they're lucky. Russ literally, I don't know if he is what he has been hyped up to be. And as a Raider fan, I would take any shot I can at anything related to Denver for my own personal reason. And I never liked the Broncos ever. Since the Seattle Seahawks left the AFC West, Denver has been the next kid for me to hate. And then Kansas City will be the only team I do respect, because Kansas City Chiefs are the only team that has a winning record against the Raiders within our division. The Chargers, well, they like to wear helmets and lick windows. But the Broncos, they're just annoying. I was a fan of Russ just because of what Russ has accomplished in the NFL, in all seriousness. But the downside to it is, what's spectacular about him is now being questioned in Denver versus Seattle, right? People would always say, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback ever. I don't believe so, because it's subjective. What you define as greatest may not be the same as what somebody else defines as greatest. And everyone wants to go to championships. Okay, great. So if Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL because he has 7 NFL Super Bowl championships, okay, great, cool. And that means he can go to any team and elevate any team to make any team better around him. Why is he struggling right now with no help? Why is he struggling right now when he has no weapons around him? People say that you put Tom Brady on any team and that team will automatically be better. Why did he go to Dallas? Right? Why did he play for the Cowboys? You have to ask yourself these questions. If you're so good and you can do anything anywhere, why didn't you go someplace where you're needed? This is personal opinion. But I think Russ is one of these QBs who, rightfully so, had confidence within himself, thought he was able to accomplish something that he was not able to accomplish, and it's coming back to bite him. Now, it's early in the season, but I honestly feel and believe Russ, right now with what Denver has in their offense, he ain't it for that team. Now, it's still early in the season, but from what everybody has noticed about dude, not whatsoever. So that's my opinion. If you have something else to say, you're more than welcome to share your opinion. Spreaker app, fill out a profile, chat it up on the chat box, and I'll respond back to you. Or you can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram, the E.I.T.H.R, right? The next thing I want to talk about is the Draymond Green thing. So he and teammate, can't remember the dude's name. I'm sorry, Poole. I remember that much. Last name Poole. They got into an altercation in practice, and it's an audio that got leaked. For somehow, some way, it got leaked. For whatever reason, it got leaked. Jordan Poole. So he and Jordan Poole, it looked like they were having some words during the practice session. Green walked over to Poole, it kind of like got in his face, ear, neck area, like he was saying something to him chest to chest, and Jordan Poole shoved Draymond Green back. Now, the funny thing about it is, not funny, haha, but he went to shove Draymond, but Jordan Poole is the one who went backwards. And then you see Draymond take a 1-2 step and throw like this right hand that just connected, and Jordan Poole dropped like a rock and he rushed him. Now, people call it a cheap shot. Definition of a cheap shot: a cheap shot is when you don't see something coming when you ain't looking for it. However, in my opinion, if you're going to be a fool, then be a fool. Shit. But just know when to act a fool and who to act a fool with. Shout out to E.I.T.H.R because he taught me that one. Right? It's one of those things where if you put your hands on somebody in an aggressive way, there's 100% no logical reason why you should not expect something to happen. None. And I know there's people saying, well, Jordan Poole didn't have his hands up. Jordan Poole he didn't even know he was in a fighting situation. Jordan Poole wasn't ready for it. Listen, Sugar Free once said, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. If we're having a joking, ha-ha, funny, hee-haw conversation, and you push me, like one-handed push, like, man, come on, man, get out of here with that. And it's like, obviously there's no malice, there's no threat, there's no aggression behind it. And I punch you, cheap shot. If I get up in your face and I'm saying something to you, and you kind of put your hands up and you like fan me away, or you put your arm against me and you kind of like push me away from you, like, come on, man, get away from me. And you get hit, cheap shot. I can see that. But if we chest to chest and your elbows go out and your hands come by your pecs and you extend with aggression and force to where you can hear the impact of your hand against my pectoral muscles outside of my sternum, and you hear a shove go back, brother, that is go time. I ain't trying to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'm not going to say Draymond was right. I'm not going to say Draymond was wrong. What I am going to say is what was said. Because if Dre was just being an antagonistic bully who was just getting in Poole's head to make him focus, and Poole was saying he was feeling himself a little bit, you got broken down to size. Now, if Draymond was saying something to being the antagonistic bully that he has a reputation of being, and Jordan was fed up with it, I understand the shove. But my mindset is you also have to understand there's a possibility a retaliation may come, especially with who you're dealing with. And my brother, read the room. Read the room. There are certain things you can do to one person that you cannot do to the other. Does it make it right? No. What it means is know thy enemy. Know who you're going up against. Right? If I decide to push somebody and I know this person is going to push me back, okay, cool. Now, this is a work environment. Even though they're multimillionaires and it's a basketball court, I get it. They're still human. And that's a world that we don't relate. I think some of us believe that the world of sports has the same rules as the world of broke people. And it doesn't. Right? They are exempt from a lot of things that we don't understand why they are exempt from. And because we're not in that world, we're not going to understand it fully to begin with. But I feel that Draymond might have been out of pocket with approaching Poole, but I don't know what was said. It's not my business. Now, Steph Curry said that, Jordan Poole feeling himself. That's not how it was. That's not the play. He's not thinking he's bigger than what it is. I want to believe Steph, but it's also not outside of Steph being the leader of that team to come out and get ahead of this thing before it steamrolls even further, to sit back and try to douse that flame either. I'm not saying Steph is lying. What I'm saying is, flip side of that, what makes it think that Steph's not trying to get in front of this so it doesn't become a bigger distraction than what it already is, because right now they're trying to find out who fucking leaked the tape. Who put this business out there? That's not as important about what's happening, but I think Draymond has that reputation to where people kind of like get rid of him. What do you think? Listen, I'm about to cut this short. You guys have a beautiful weekend. Enjoy the sunlight. The rain is coming soon, hopefully. Check back with me next week, Monday, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Love y'all.
This is Henry from New York, and I listen to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with my homie Decal.